What's up guys, Loom here. Welcome back to the channel, and thank you for tuning in. Today we're looking at the Ret Paladin Mage Tower Challenge, the God Queen's Fury. For safety, I'd recommend not looking directly at my forehead, lest you be blinded by the only sunlight we've received all year. The God Queen Sigrun is accompanied by Jarl Velbrand and Runeseer Faljar. I will do my best to be consistent with how I refer to the other two mobs. In this video, I'm going to let you know how the fight works and how to best overcome the difficult parts of it. The only modifications to my gear in the demonstration are Chant of Leeching Fangs on my cloak, and Chant of Armored Leech on my bracers. This will give you nearly 13% leech in the Mage Tower, which is enough to cover most of the unavoidable damage as you cleave the bosses down. Going one tiny step further, if you add Crystalline Radiance to your chest and a Stormbound Armor Kit to your legs, you're going to get another 230 strength and about 10% more max HP. These are the two biggest throughput enhancements you can put on your gear. The remaining consumables, enchants, and gems you can use in this fight are much less effective, but I will cover those at the end of the fight. Sigrun and Faljar both have one ability that needs to be managed, and Velbrand has two. Sigrun will cast Blood of the Father on herself. This results in a very long period of AoE damage that is essentially a wipe. The cast can be stopped with Hammer of Justice or Blinding Light. Using Repent instead of Blinding Light is trickier due to the cast time and targeting and facing requirements, though it is a lower cooldown and frees up your stun for more uses on Jarl Velbrand. I use Blinding Light in this demonstration. I also don't recommend trying to hard CC Sigrun with Repent, since it's very easily broken, and cleaving all three bosses down makes the fight faster, and transfers more healing to you via Leech. Faljar will periodically get an Absorb Shield and start casting a one-shot ability called Ancestral Knowledge. The shield needs to be damaged through, and the cast then interrupted with Rebuke. The cast is very long, so you will have time for Rebuke to come off cooldown, even if you used it on the previous Shadow Bolt. The bosses share incoming damage, so continuing to cleave with Divine Storm during the shield is more damage to it than focusing the Runeseer with single target attacks. Velbrand is definitely the scariest of the bosses. His Berserker Rage is a 20-second buff, which cannot be prevented. It increases his damage by 500% and his attack speed by 100%. You're not going to be tanking him for very long in this state. The Rage does slow him by 40% as well, which does allow you to kite him pretty easily, even without using the speed boost. He can also be stunned during the Rage, but that only covers a portion of that buff. You're also dealing with a periodic knockback effect and some green puddles, just to keep you awake. In addition to those abilities, you're going to get waves of Valkyrie to spawn and rush through the combat area. These will wipe you unless you stand in the open space between the Valkyrie. Flattening out your camera angle is a good way to identify where that open spot is, especially if they're spawning on the left or right of the room. And finally, you're going to get sets of 3 runes in the middle area that need to be stomped out before they completely shrink and detonate. Both the runes and the Valkyrie are on variable but predetermined timers and can be dealt with by just reacting appropriately. Nothing in the fight will go through your Divine Shield immunity, but it is best to save it for an actual panic scenario that is otherwise hopeless. Usually this will be some form of overlap between the runes, the Valkyrie crossing, and Velbrand's Berserker Rage. The rune explosions are staggered out longer than your bubble duration and are difficult to time, so you're generally only using Divine Shield to avoid an explosion that you would otherwise die trying to get to. Everything else can be face tanked and healed through via Leech and Eternal Flame. And now for the ride along. But before we start, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel to show your support and to stay in the loop for future videos and streams. Thanks so much. A quick note before we begin. I have Runeseer Faljar as my focus target, and I use that to focus kick. On the pull, I auto-attack Sigrun to get in combat, making the other bosses active. Then I pull the Runeseer over to Velbrand. Despite Velbrand being a melee and the Runeseer being a caster, Runeseer moves a lot easier than Velbrand, as there's this dead zone area where Velbrand will just start throwing axes at you. Kind of annoying, but it is what it is. Using that same dead zone on the Runeseer will actually cause him to move while casting, which again makes him a little bit easier to move around than Velbrand. Best to think of Velbrand as a hunter in terms of how you're tanking the fight. And as we get in combat, I just use Freedom to be a little bit faster on the clump up. We get them all stacked up together and we just start blasting. If you're using a potion and barrel hide drums for Bloodlust, use them here. The first mechanic we're going to get is Berserker Rage out of Velbrand. We're going to use our Hammer of Justice on this and Blessing of Protection. First green puddle, knockback. You can see him hurling axes when I'm just even a little bit out of melee, and he comes forward once I'm closer. Berserker Rage, we stun this, and we don't want to overlap our stun with our Blessing of Protection. We hit that now. Probably a good time to throw Eternal Flame on yourself. You may have gotten an auto attack off or two. And if the runes weren't going to come up, we would just finish tanking that out with Divine Protection. It's a 1 minute cooldown, and we have the talent to make it a 40% DR. Another knockback. Second set of runes comes up, and during this set of runes, Sigrun is going to cast Blood of the Father. Our stun is back up from when we first used it. We stun mid-cast. No Blood of the Father. Perfect. And in general, I don't really mind too much where I'm dropping puddles. I'm just not going to be standing in the puddles as they drop. I will freely run through them if I need to get to a rune. They don't do too much damage. Eternal Flame and Leech Healing will easily cover it, especially the orbs that are also dropped that I don't even mention because you don't really need them. Another puddle, we're just moving. Micro movements are the best way to get both of the other ads to move with you. And first, Ancestral Knowledge. And again, cleaving will actually transfer more damage into the shield than single targeting this. So, just blasting away. The cast is very, very long. No real benefit to holding the cast, just kick it when you can. And our first set of Valkyries, we flatten our camera and we just dodge thusly. And you can see all of this damage just comes out, and it's just, my health bar is barely moving. If you stand in a puddle for too long, that's fine. Blade Storm comes out, we stun that, but as our stun is now on CD, we're going to get Blood of the Father, and we just blind this. You don't need to target Sigrun, just hit blind. If you're in melee, it'll disrupt the cast. And we're just clumping and cleaving. Another benefit to playing inside the circle like this is you're occasionally going to just be standing on a rune as it spawns, kind of making life a little bit easier for you. I get a friendly Valkyrie spawn here. Another rune spawn. I tend to only use horse on runes if I'm not getting the smallest rune right away. You don't necessarily have to. Again, another Ancestral Knowledge. With the build we're using, Blessing of Freedom also acts as a speed increase. And Ancestral Knowledge burn through, we kick, clump and cleave. Another knockback. Don't let the knockbacks frustrate you. I'm not sure there's any point where it overlaps with any Valkyrie spawns or anything weird. During rune spawns, definitely, but you'll have time to adjust. I'm a little bit more right than I want to be here. Okay, maybe not. And the one difficult part about putting the puddles kind of wherever you want to is that the runes do spawn in them. It can be difficult to see, even if this, especially if the small one spawns in it, but is what it is. Make liberal use of Eternal Flame, and here's where patience pays off. I think a lot of people might have gone for that small rune in a little bit of a panic. You just wait for the Valkyries across. Blade Storm and Blood of the Father coming out. We blind Blood of the Father. I didn't get the stun on Blade Storm. I was a little slow. And you can see as long as you're not in that clear area, just around him, you're not going to get damage. You'll just get pulled by the winds. Not the biggest deal in the world. That said, I prefer not to deal with it at all. I would rather have stunned it and then blinded Sigrun. We mostly stuck with the plan there. Got new Valkyries. We're moving. Sometimes this busts up our clump a little bit. And then we stun Jarl Velbrand. Easy peasy. And really very little danger unless one of those one-shot mechanics is going out, or unless Velbrand is enraged, or unless you take a tick of that Whirlwind, Blade Storm, rather. We're just moving. Little micro movements will keep the clump with you. Sigrun empowers all of our council. This is about the 5-minute mark. We know we have Blessing and Protection back up. I actually don't use it here. I should have. We continue to DPS through this. We use our stun on Sigrun when she hits Blood of the Father, and then Jarl Velbrand's also going to Berserker Rage at about the same time. And we're going to get Valkyrie shooting across. This is kind of a little bit of a soft enrage, real tough to difficult mechanic. I actually bubble this, let the Valkyrie go through, and then I should be kiting. Yeah, now we're kiting. And Velbrand's almost done. We're not going to have to deal with him much longer. And from this point out, you're just going to get kind of spam Ancestral Knowledge Shield from Valjar. Sigrun's going to cast another Blood of the Father, which we just stun. Very late. Continuing to DPS this Ancestral Knowledge Shield. Actually, damage is going to be a little bit slower since we don't have that third add. And if Sigrun has another Blood of the Father up her sleeve, we do have blind. And again, this fight is without the primary stat enchants on your chest and legs, meaning you're likely not going to have to deal with it, but better to show it than not, as it is the most difficult part of the fight, while the triple overlap with the Valkyrie is actually the worst. And we blind this one only because I was a little slow to target Sigrun. Boom, once Runeseer gets to, I think it's 8% actually, the fight ends. And that's how we do it. 41% of the healing is Leech. Seal of the Crusader actually beat out Internal Flame. That's just auto attacks from a class talent. And just keep in mind, you can also get a little bit of extra power socketing your neck piece and both rings with 2 sockets each using a Magnificent Jeweler setting. You definitely want to use a War Within Blasphemite gem. I would recommend the Elusive Blasphemite. This will give you 2% movement speed per unique colored War Within gem. This is why you might see people running around with 5 different colored gems and not all the same type of gem like we're used to doing. And if you do have a choice on your stats, Haste and Mastery are going to be the best output stats you can get for Ret Paladin. Trading that Mastery for versatility will give you a little bit more survivability, but again, that Leech is just going to cover it. Again, 12% Leech just from those 2 enchants. Authority of the Depths scales down pretty well if you already have that on your weapon. I have a rank 2 Radiant Power here. So I guess I was dishonest, I did have a 3rd enchant. And a quick note on consumables. Greater Flask of the Undertow, Superior Battle Potion of Strength. Use any old augment runes. They're either going to give you 7 or 11 main stat. Oralis Blood Sausage is the food to use. And you can also use the War Scrolls of Stamina and Battle Shout from Battle for Azeroth as well. And that's about all I got for Ret Paladin this time around. Of course, the talents will be in the description below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel to support us and to stay in the loop for future videos. Like the video if you liked it. Let me know in the comments how your attempts are going or if you need anything clarified. And I want to thank you so much for giving this video your time. I hope you have a great rest of your day or evening. Peace.